like and subscribe. What is your worst a customer tried to hit on me at work story? I was stocking shelves on my knees. Man walks up and says millimeters wish you'd get on your knees like that for me. I was 16. He was like 50. I'm so sorry. Like literally I feel so sexualized and objectified anywhere I go. Even if I wear baggy clothes, it's as if their gaze doesn't go away. I had this happen when I was 13 and working in a supermarket. An old, smelly man said to me, I like being on your knees, Donna, did you? I was too young to know even what he was talking about. A couple of weeks later he came in again, and I followed him and squirted him with air freshener on purpose, cause he really did stink. I was 16 and working at a grocery store. I had to keep my hair tied back or up at all times. I was too lazy to do buns, so I used to do ponytails/braids. I had to stop doing 2 braids on either side of my head, because this elderly customer, looked to be in his 60s/70s, used to grab one in each hand and pull me across the register, to tell me how much he liked pulling hair, and how he wanted to take me home with him, so I could make him dinner. On behalf of all men everywhere, I am deeply sorry for this behavior. No way, I had a similar thing. Although a little less overtly. Worst thing, I lived in a small town back then, and I vaguely knew the man. He was a cop. When I was 18, and working as a waitress, an older man came in, and sat in my section. He gave extremely creepy/unsafe vibes right off the bat. He was one of those customers who would continue talking to you, even when you are obviously trying to do your job. The way he led was nauseating. He didn't try to hide it at all. He kept telling me how rich he was, and to go look out the window at his car, and that it cost $30,000, and he had another one like it. He also made plenty of very inappropriate jokes/inferences, and would stick out his tongue, which was covered in what looked like white fuzz. Nasty, when he cackled at my obvious discomfort. I was growing increasingly annoyed at this point, because he had just sat there for around 4 hours straight continuously trying to engage me in conversation, while I was helping other customers, and doing side work. Finally he left, and I breathed a sigh of relief that such a grimy, objectifying presence had left. I had 2 jobs at this point and I went to my other shift working at Chipotle. Had a normal day until 10 minutes before close his car rolls up, and he saunters in, like he thinks he's John Wayne or something. He sidled up at the window where you order, waved his hand dismissively at my coworker who asked him what he'd like to order, and just walked straight up to me with this arrogant grin on his face. I deadpan asked him what he'd like to order. He looked annoyed, and said I don't care, a Coke or something, so I rang him up for a Coke, handed him the cup, and started helping the next customer. I didn't show any sign of recognition or interest because I was head off at this point. I think he actually expected me to react to his presence or something. Anyway, he walked away in an insulted manner, filled his cup with Coke, took a sip, and slowly poured it into the trash, while staring directly at me. It took me about an hour to close the lobby, which, goody, had an entire wall of just windows/2 glass doors, where the whole parking lot could see inside. He sat in the closest parking spot 2 feet away from the entrance, waiting behind his tinted windows, for the entire hour, until I was done. By this point I had informed my manager of the situation and everyone was creeped out. I would usually walk home, but my manager said hell no, and told me to call someone to pick me up, and everyone stayed with me, until my brother arrived. When my brother pulled up, and got out right next to his passenger door, I'm sure this crusty old man was confused why some 6-foot-tall bodybuilding looking dude was going into Chipotle, after it was closed. Everyone stared him down, or where we imagined he would be behind the tinted windows, as I walked out, and got into my brother's car. We started to pull out and suddenly his engine roars and he abruptly and carelessly swerves inches in front of our bumper. He faced us with his car for a whole minute, revving his engine, before speeding away. I never ran into him again, thank God but I swear I still shudder, when I think about the way he made me feel that night. TL, doctor, a very creepy old man found out about my 18 at the time, second job and followed me there, presumably to try and corner me / snatch me up when I left work to walk home alone. Thank God, you're okay. I hope he burns alive and burns in hell once Heller's dead. Very glad you're safe. Laxatives in the coke, if he comes back and hide the tissue in the stalls. Hooray for your big brother, and being mature enough not to knock him out. You should post this at r/let's not meet. That place was made for stories like that. Horrifying. It does make me laugh wondering how furious and small he must have felt thinking that your 6-foot bodybuild endued brother was your boyfriend. Hence the small energy square off with the Carl Mayo. I really love how all of your coworkers saw you through safely and shamed this dude hard. And this is why the advice to young women to just be nice is dangerous. This is not an isolated incident. Like this happens to women all the time. Just being nice makes these creepy men think you're interested, so no, we are not going to smile and be friendly to every man because it makes them feel better. Screw their fragile ego. I am so sorry this happened to you. Oh gods. I think the worst part is that he did this all in plain sight and all obviousness, like he was in his right and entitled to you. This story made my skin crawl. Sorry you had to experience this. I was working as a technician at an Apple retailer and was just coming in from my break. I saw a man seated in the waiting area and said, "Give me a couple minutes, sir. I'll be right with you," and he nodded politely. I go in the back, take off my coat, and go up to the service desk. For context, I am a heavier girl who is quite well endowed in the chest area. This 70-year-old man looked at my cleavage and said, "Wow, you sure got a lot of tit on you, girl." I straight up did not even know what to say, since that never happened to me in a professional context. It happened again 3 days later, a woman this time, and my team coach and his coach laughed it off. I took it 2 hours, and made a thing out of it. Eventually they both apologized, and I said I'd refuse to ever service that man again, and if they made me, they could find a new technician. Wow, you shouldn't have had to be the one defending yourself, but good for you for being bold enough to demand better treatment. The idea of your bosses laughing at that really s me off. I wish I was more like you. His girlfriend went to the bathroom, and he told me he was in love with me. I'm gross. Did he follow you in there? Did you tell her what happened though? I'd like to know if my boyfriend hits on girls the minute I'm gone. I was working at the funeral home as a director and embalmer. A young man, who from what I could tell lived a rough lifestyle, had died. His family and friends were gathered in the chapel, and I was in the lobby, in my black suit buttoned up to my earlobes with my hair pulled back. I feel it's necessary to say how unsexy I looked. One of the deceased's friends, a young man, approached me and started small talk. In the course of this conversation he told me that for the last funeral he went to, which I also directed, he and his buddies had stolen several vehicles, in order to make it in time. I politely nodded, when he added, "You gotta get where you're going, ya know?" He then proceeded to ask if I had a card, which I provided as it was on a stand right next to me. He then asked if the number on said card was my cell phone number. He was disappointed when I said no, and again when I said no to giving him said number. I like how he tried to impress you by bragging about Grand Theft Auto. Lord have mercy. Should buried him along with the dead. I feel like this should be top comment. It hits all the right notes. 1. Entirely inappropriate setting to be hitting on someone. 2. Entirely inappropriate way to hit on someone. 3. Completely mistaking professional politeness with reciprocity in his advances. The holy trinity of hitting on women at work. Bravo. I hope the only time you get to see this guy again is in a body bag. Grief is a powerful aphrodisiac. I had a guy demand to know my schedule, so he said he could come in every time I worked, so he could ask me out, until I said yes. I also had a man hit on me while coming in with his wife/girlfriend and 3 of their kids so vertical bar she took them to the bathroom and he asked for my number. I am pretty sure the worst was these 2 men who we are pretty sure were sex traffickers. I had already been warned by another coworker they tried to force her outside by cornering her in the lobby. They asked me all sorts of weird questions like what ethnicity I was, did I have family, etc, and then stared at me the entire time they were at their table. I made sure I wasn't it up at the hostess stand alone. 1. So unfortunate how some men think that not taking no for an answer is romantic and not insulting. 2. What a catch, you sure missed out lol. And 3. They weren't even trying to hide it, were they? I'm glad you're safe. That sounds horrible. Thankfully nothing like that has happened to me. So sorry about these creeps. I read this line. I had a guy demand to know my schedule, so he said he could come in every time I worked, so he could ask me out, until I said yes. And then I read your nick. NGL, it was funny lol. I agree that in real life this is disconcerting and crazy, but it is the plot line to most rom-coms. One time, while working at a bakery, I complimented a man on his shirt, just being friendly. He had to sign a receipt. He looked up at me and said, "Yeah. My girlfriend is really going to enjoy this dessert." I wasn't hitting on him, honestly, just a compliment. But he totally shut me down. That has nothing to do with this question. But wanted to share. Haha, this one made me laugh. Thank you for sharing. Once I told a man on an elevator that he smelled nice. I thought he might tell me what he was wearing, so I could get it for my fiancée. Same thing, he shut me down ruthlessly. Same, but with a university professor. I asked if there was anything I could do to make up for an assignment, and he shot me down, half awkwardly laughing. I followed with like an essay, or something similar, and he looked embarrassed af. But still think he was creepy. And why is that the first thing that comes to their mind? WTF. I don't think I even smiled, which I am aware would not be my fault, but anyway, and have been told I have a RBF. He was underscore sexist af, though / had very sexist views. So it does make some kind of sense. In any case, D, please do not, thanks. At those situations I just double down on my friendliness. D. That's awesome, I hope it makes her happy. Fatter as when you one-up them, yeah, my husband loves that one. I worked at a fishing and tackle store when I was 21 and have had heaps of older guys get grabby. The worst, though, was an older guy who seemed really normal. I am gonna call him Joe. He had a couple of daughters who were my age and they would all come in and get their gear before heading out on their boat. I had run into him while at my fishing spot, and we would always chat, and a couple of times my boss and I had gone out in his boat to fish for mollinages from the coast. Then he invited me to go fishing with him and his daughters out at a spot a few hours from town. Said we would go stay at his property out there and then spend the next day fishing and catching snapper. He was a nice guy, and I had known him for a while now, so why not? I told my boyfriend where I was going and said I would be back the next day. Joe picks me up, and his daughters were enamored with him. They were already at his property and he came into town to pick me up and grab some food for the trip. We get to his property and his daughters are enamored there. Turns out they were enamored coming after all, and now I am alone with Joe about 4 hours from the nearest town. My danger meter is on high alert by this time. He ended up drugging and raping me that night. I remember bits of it but not much. Then he left me there. 4 hours by car from civilization. With no phone reception. I walked for hours until a truck driver saw me and gave me a lift to town so I could call my boyfriend to come pick me up. Thankfully I never saw Joe or his daughters again. Edit. Thanks everyone for the support. I am okay. I was honestly more ed that the left me in the middle of nowhere. Like, the least he could do is drive me home. I'm so sorry. Joe deserves to rot. I was also a very trusting person when around that age, and something similar, but not nearly as awful, happened to me. I hope you're doing okay, and that you're healing. The idea of someone taking advantage of your trust is infuriating. I have been typing and deleting for 20 minutes trying to find the words to say. You are loved, and deserve to know true peace, and you will someday. That reprehensible villain will die alone. with nothing but his own cold, diseased soul to keep him company. The should have put the in jail for that, and it is still not too late. Jesus H. Christ, I hope that dude was put behind iron bars. I'm so sorry, that's horrible. I hope you're okay, you didn't do anything wrong. I'm so sorry that this happened to you. That man deserves to rot for all of eternity. And even that is too good for the absolute scum of humanity that he is. I hope one day he accidentally cuts off his clan. I was in my late 20s, but I've always looked young. Most customers assumed I was a college student. This boy who was definitely a teenager came into my store while I was eating dinner. Since I worked alone, I ate at the desk. He said, "Whoa girl, what else you do with that mouth?" Not putting myself in prison by messing around with a rude minor and his terrible pickup lines. The correct answer would be rip out jugulars with a sweet smile. Oh boy, DD vertical bar arari. 1. Sat outside the door of the small clothing store I worked at waiting for 4 hours staring at me. My shift ended. My manager said if he says or does anything you come right back inside. Sure enough, dude gets up and starts making a move as soon as I step out. As I go back into the store, manager comes barreling out with a baseball bat. Best boss ever. 2. Getting something off a bottom shelf. Fat old man shoves his crotch in my face and tells me to make myself useful. Different manager tells me to get over it. That's how men are. He should have uppercut balls on your way back up. As I go back into the store, manager comes barreling out with a baseball bat. Best boss ever. A+++ boss. I wish I had more managers like that in my work history. What happened after your manager came out with the bat? Followed me home in the bus. After I said no, I had to hide in a 7-Eleven until he stopped following me and muttering, "So scary D. Ugh, that is so terrible." Something like this happened to my coworker. Worst thing was she was super young, like 16 to 17, so it had to have been terrifying. Some really old dude who was a regular customer at the place we worked at tried following her home. I do not understand creeps like this, and how they are still running around society freely. I was 16 and a 50-year-old man said he wants his coffee hot like me. My fiancé worked there with me at the time and almost killed him. Edit, no, we were not engaged at 16. He is my fiancé now. Fatter as when you serve the coffee to him at a lukewarm 98. 6 degrees Fahrenheit. What a pig decent. Did your fiancé say anything to him? Your fiancé, at 16, almost killed a customer? You were engaged at 16 years old? Sorry, I'm not entirely sure I understand this, and just wanted to ask. You had a fiancé at 16. No matter your age, the old man sure seems creepy. Sorry you had to put up with that. 2 situations. I was a hostess at a restaurant during the slower shift of mornings with maybe a lunch rush. I had this guy come in for lunch almost every Monday with some coworkers. He was probably in his 40s, seemed like a normal guy, gave me a side hug a time or two, but he seemed harmless. When he found out I quit, he found me on FB and messaged me some weird message that ended with something along the lines of like the good girl you are. I didn't ever respond, but it wasn't maybe 2 months later I see his mugshot on the local news for child porn charges and seducing minors. Second situation, not as risky, but just this guy's timing was just not there. I used to work front desk at a gym and occasionally was allowed to lift on shift for like an hour. I was doing cardio the last 20 minutes on the Stairmaster, absolutely dying and sweating all over the machine. This guy who would always try to talk to me at the desk came in and was trying to talk to me while I was fighting for my freaking life on the Stairmaster. Like, dude, can you not see I can barely breathe, let alone have a conversation with you? It's so terrifying how often the most depraved and twisted people present like normal people. I'm glad you're safe. And the second situation sounds so aggravating, lol. You've been visited by the ghost of a very important man. Pay your respects by liking and subscribing, and he'll grant you 3 weeks of good luck.